My neighbor secretly built a fence 2 feet into my property. When I confronted him, he smirked and said, "Prove it." The next morning, my tires were slashed, and a message was spray painted on my garage, "Try and stop me." Furious, I hired a lawyer. But just as I was about to take him to court, I found a letter in my mailbox that made my blood run cold. It was a warning from someone who fought him before, and they vanished. I may have 42 live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Des Moines, Iowa. I bought this house 5 years ago. It's not fancy, but it's mine. I take care of it, mow the lawn, shovel snow, keep things clean, the kind of place you want to settle down, and my neighbors have always been mostly fine. Until Rick moved in next door. Rick, mid-50s, maybe, bought the place last year. First few weeks were quiet, no issues. Then one morning I noticed guys setting up posts along a shared property line. They were working fast, hammering wood, digging holes. I walked out to check it out. Me, "Hey, what's going on?" One of the workers building a fence for the guy next door. That's the first I'd heard about it. I hadn't spoken to Rick since he moved in. But building a fence isn't unusual, so I didn't think much of it until I noticed how far into my side they were digging. I grabbed the property survey I got when I bought the place. According to that, the fence wasn't on the line, it was over it. A full 2 feet into my yard. Not inches, feet. I waited until I saw Rick outside. I walked over, calm and respectful. "Me, "'Kay, Rick, I think the fence might be over the property line. I have the original survey from when I bought the house." Rick, smirking, "Prove it." Then he walked away. I stood there dumbfounded, no discussion, no curiosity. Just a smug smirk and a walk off, like I was annoying him by daring to bring it up. I called a survey or to come out and do a fresh property line check. Cost me $450, worth it. Survey confirmed what I already knew. Fence was on my land. I had photos, measurements, everything. I went back to Rick's house with a copy of the survey. Rick opened the door, looked at the paper, and then, no lie, laughed. Rick, so good luck with that. He shut the door in my face. I was furious. Not just about the land, but the way he acted, like none of it mattered. Like I didn't matter. The next morning, I went outside to go to work. All 4 of my tires were slashed, spray painted on my garage door, and giant red letters, "Try and stop me." I called the cops immediately. They came out, took photos, wrote a report, but there weren't cameras back there at the time. No proof it was him. I asked about fingerprints on the spray paint. The officer said they'd take it under consideration. Translation: nothing would happen. I cleaned off the paint myself, but new tires, ordered security cameras, and put them up that same day. That night, I barely slept. Over the next few days, I noticed things: garbage tossed over my fence, a dead squirrel left on my back step. The camera caught nothing clear, just shadows. But I knew it was him. I called a lawyer. The lawyer was great. We started building a case: trespassing, vandalism, harassment. I kept logs, videos, photos, time stamps, police reports. I was ready to file. That's when I got the letter. It was in my mailbox. No return address. Handwritten in all caps on the envelope, read, "Before you do anything." Inside was a typed letter: "No name, justice. I used to live here in the house on your street. I had the same problem with Rick. He'd built into my property too. I took him to court, and I won, but after that things got worse. My dog was poisoned, my back door was kicked in, I got calls every night. I reported it, nothing happened. I moved away because I was scared. I'm writing this, the one you be careful." Rick doesn't stop. I just sat there reading it over and over again. My stomach felt like a rock. This wasn't just a jerk neighbor. This was someone dangerous. I showed the letter to my lawyer. He asked if I still wanted to go ahead with the case. I said yes. I had to. Rick wasn't done, though. He started standing in my yard, not saying anything, just staring at my house from a few feet away. I'd yell at him. He'd just stare. He'd wait until I came out, then walk back into his house. The cameras caught him, but he never touched anything, so it was still technically legal. One night, I heard a loud bang. I ran outside. Someone had thrown a rock through my living room window. I checked the footage, but whoever did it stayed out of view. I called the police again. Nothing came of it. The next day, I found another note under my doormat. It just said, "You should have listened." I started getting nervous to even go outside. I'd open the curtains and see Rick in his window watching. The worst part: my house started losing value because of all the reports and disputes. I couldn't sell it without taking a loss. And then something happened that changed everything again. A few days after that second note, I started hearing weird clicking sounds on my phone. Whenever I talked for too long, there'd be a faint echo like someone was listening. Maybe I was just paranoid, but paranoia has a way of feeling a lot like instinct when someone's out to get you. Then something weird happened. A man then came to my door one afternoon. He was maybe in his 60s, gray beard, work boots, wearing an old army jacket. He didn't say his name, he just looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're going up against Rick." I nodded slowly. He shook his head, almost like he was sorry for me. I knew him years ago. We worked together at the same hardware supply company in a Tumblr. Let me guess, he built something. "I'm your land, dared you to do something. And now things are getting ugly." I asked, "How do you know that the man looked tired?" "Because it's the same thing he did before. Back in a Tumblr, Rick messed with the wrong guy, not over a fence, over money. Guy took Rick to court. A week later, his house caught fire. Whole family had to move out." My chest tightened. "What happened to Rick?" He laughed. "But it wasn't funny. Nothing ever happens to him." He gave me a look like he wanted to say more, but then he turned and walked away. I tried to follow him, but by the time I got outside, he was already down the block. Later that night, I searched everything I could online about Rick Thompson. No social media, barely any records. But then I found it, an old local news article from 2006, a Tumblr family displaced after suspicious house fire. No arrests, no suspects. But buried at the bottom, it said the homeowner had just won a civil case against a former coworker named Richard Thompson. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just a petty neighbor. This man had a pattern. The next week, I started getting letters not typed, handwritten, all caps. No return address. One per day. First one, you think this is again. Second one, you don't know what I done. Third one, look behind you. I installed more cameras, bright lights. I even bought a motion sensor alarm for the backyard. That night around 2:13 am, my phone buzzed. One of the cameras detected motion. I pulled up the feed and saw Rick standing at the edge of my backyard, staring straight into the camera. Not moving, just standing for 9 minutes. Then he stepped back and disappeared into the dark. I sent the footage to my lawyer and to the police. They said again, "Since he's not trespassing or causing damage, we can arrest him." I was trapped in my own home. I started sleeping with a bed under the bed. I couldn't focus at work. My boss noticed. I had to explain the whole situation. He was understanding, but I knew I was pushing my luck. Then the court date came. Rich showed up in a plain suit, come clean cut, with a binder full of lies. He brought in fake measurements, fake photos, claimed the survey or I hired was incompetent, and even accused me of harassment. Said I was the one vandalizing my own property to frame him. I was stunned, but my lawyer was prepared. We had the real documents, timestamps, the official survey, even emails. It was enough. I won. The judge ordered Rick to move the fence and pay damages for the vandalism. League of this and emotional distress. It was a win, a big one. But I didn't feel safe. Not for 1 second. The night after the ruling, I came home and noticed something strange. My front door was unlocked. I always double check. I always hear the click. I went inside, slowly looked around. Nothing seemed touched until I got to the kitchen. On the table and the exact center was a box, wrapped in black cloth. No note, no tape. Just sitting there. I didn't touch it. I called the cops. They came out, cleared the place, had the bomb squad check it, just in case. Inside, a single dead crow wrapped in fishing was still. No fingerprints, no leads, no arrest. They called it a sick prank. I called it what it was, a threat. Rick still lived next door. And every morning after that, I'd see him out there mowing his lawn, whistling, waving like none of this happened, like he was daring me to do something again. But that's not even the end, because a week after that, I found something else, buried in my backyard. It started with the shovel, not mine. I found it one morning standing upright in the middle of my backyard, half buried, like someone just dropped it there and left. I hadn't been digging, and this wasn't a toy I owned that was enough to make me freeze. I checked my cameras, but for some reason there was a 4-hour gap in the footage from that night. All 4 of my outdoor cameras blacked out between 1:12 am and 5:03 am. I called the company. They told me it wasn't a technical error. Someone had either jammed the signal or disabled them all at once. I didn't even know that was possible. So I started digging where the shovel had been stuck, and about a foot down, I found a bag, plastic wrapped tight inside it. Photos, printed photos of me walking the dog, taking out the trash, sleeping on the couch, sitting in my home office, working through my windows, through the blinds. One photo was taken from behind me in my kitchen. From inside my house, I backed away like the bag burned me my whole body. When cold, I called the police again. They came, took the photos, opened a report, said they'd look into it. That was 2 weeks ago. Haven't heard a single update since. I don't know how. Regarding, I changed the locks, added cameras inside, even nailed my windows shut in every room. But it's not just Rick now. 3 nights ago, I got a text, unknown number. It said you're not the only one. Then they sent a name. Marcus V. I had no idea who that was. I googled it, checked my contacts, nothing. Then the next day another message, check 1042 Dale Street. So I drove there. It was a rundown duplex, boarded windows, overgrown yard. Clearly abandoned, but taped to the front door was a plastic sleeve. Inside, another photo of Rick, younger, standing in front of what looked like a bar, with another guy, early 30s, bald, tattoos on his arms. On the back of the photo, someone had scribbled and read Sharpie, "This is Marcus." I took it to my lawyer. He looked at me like I'd grown to heads. "I know that guy," he said. "Marcus Varala. He used to be a contractor here. Got into a big dispute with a client, disappeared in 2017. I started pulling public records. Marcus filed a lawsuit against Rick Thompson in 2016. It was over a building job gone wrong. The case got dismissed for lack of evidence. No one's heard from him since. I found a police report. Marcus was last seen at a gas station, Justify 80. Security footage showed him alone pumping gas, then driving off. He never made it home. His truck was found abandoned 2 counties over, empty, clean white down. Rex name was never mentioned again in any of the files. No suspect, no arrest, just vanished. Now I'm sitting here staring at these pieces, Marcus, the photos, the shovel, the cut footage, and I can't help but feel like someone's trying to warn me or maybe pull me deeper into something I'm not supposed to find. But I'm not backing down, because 2 nights ago. So I checked my mail and found another note, folded paper, same all caps handwriting. "You found Marcus, now find the rest." What the hell does that mean? How many are there? And why is no one doing anything? I didn't sleep after that last note. "You found Marcus, now find the rest." I went back to the backs of photos. There were 18 in total. I never really looked at the backs, somewhere blank, but 3 had initially written in pen. MV is so TG. I ran them through every missing persons database I could find. Marcus V was Marcus forever. I already knew that ISL took longer. Eventually, I found it. Sasha Lytle from Make Any disappeared in 2014. No leads for the harassment report against a man she worked with on a construction project before she vanished. Never named him. The report was sealed. TG, still a mystery. But that was enough for me. I made copies of everything, the photos, the letters, the court documents. I even printed screenshots of Rick's creepy late-night visits from the cameras. Then I sent it to every local news station, to every law office, to every one of Rick's past employers I could find. And I sent one more copy to Rick himself, dated right to his front door. That same night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Message, big mistake. 10 minutes later, the power to my house out, all of it. I grabbed my flashlight, the bat, and headed to the basement. The breaker had been ripped out. Not tripped, ripped out. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. I froze, didn't breathe, bat in hand. I crept up the stairs. I didn't turn on the flashlight. I didn't want to give away my position. The living room was empty, but the front door was wide open. And on the floor, another dead bird. This one had a string tied around. It's like attached to a key. And under it, another note, "Doors open. You move." I lost it. That was the moment. That was the breaking point. I'd done everything right. I followed the law, called the cops, filed the papers, stayed calm. But none of it mattered, so I made a mistake, a big one. I took the key, went next door. Rick's lights were on, his door was unlocked. I stepped inside. It smelled like chemicals and burnt wood. The house was weird to clean, in some parts filthy in others. Kitchen spotless, living room covered in dust, weird mix of furniture, some new, some ancient. I walked down the hallway holding my breath. One of the doors had a padlock on it. The key fit, it clicked open. Inside, a room with boxes, dozens of them, all labeled with initials. I opened one, photos of other people, families, pets, homes, notes, old phones, keys, more black cloth bags. Each box was a file, like he kept trophies. There were too many. I took photos of everything I could, then I left quietly, locked it back. I ran home, emailed all the pictures to myself, saved them to 3 drives, sent one to my lawyer. Then I called the cops. They came. I showed them the photos, the room, everything. This time they didn't leave. They brought back up. One came fast. Rick was arrested the next morning. That should have been the end. But it wasn't, because when they opened those boxes officially, they found more than photos. They found here teeth, blood-stained scraps of clothes, pet colors. Rick didn't just harass people, he hunted them. 6 cold cases, reopened 2 bodies identified, 1 still missing. Rick didn't speak in court, but his attorney tried to paint me as a stalker, said I broke into his house, lied about everything, that I set him up, and that's when my own mistake came back, because I had broken in. I'd taken the line to my own hands. I walked into that house. I didn't wait for a warrant. I made that move, and it almost cost me the day. Didn't charge me, but I was publicly criticized. News outlets ran stories like hero or trespasser. My job put me on leave. My name was everywhere. Every online troll in the country crawled out to have an opinion. But I do it again, because that fence, that stupid crooked fence, it uncovered a serial predator who used lawsuits and property lines to bait his victims, who like power, control, fear, who thought nobody would ever stop him. But someone did me, and maybe I didn't do it clean, maybe I got my hands dirty. But for the first time in years, those families got answers. And I got mine. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come in the form of fire or fists, sometimes it comes in the form of truth.